Hey guys, welcome back to According To. I'm Megan.
And I'm Ciera. And for this week's episode, Megan and I thought it'd be fun to talk about how reading has changed our lives.
We had some nosy Nellies last week is what I figured out, because last week's episode was our most listened / watched episode, not ever, but like in quite some time. It's up there. It is our most watched video version. And then honestly, I can't even see like our
We've changed hosting platforms.
It doesn't it's reset at some point. So I can't see what our most viewed episode is and know that it's 100% accurate. But it's definitely been like the most listened to out of our recent episodes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I got a lot of good positive feedback where people were saying, one, first of all, like, yes, it was entertaining. And that's, I know it was. So that's why I shared. But I also had some people just say that they were grateful that I shared like the experience, just because like it's something that a lot of people go through. It's not uncommon, and so it was nice to hear it from someone else's perspective. So yeah, that's all I had to say about last week's episode. Onward and upward.
As far as this week's episode, we're kind of like gonna run through just like our journey with reading, because like we both started reading when we were younger and then like fell out of it, I think, as most people tend to do, and talk about how we picked it back up. And I thought it'd be fun to like talk about like and we'll get into it, but like reading itself and like the opportunities or like people that it's introduced to. Like I feel like just if I hadn't started reading, I'd be a very different person than I am right now. And so we'll talk about it.
Of course, we always need to start with our weekly spotlights, and then of course our reading update, which will bleed nicely into the rest of the episode. Do you have a weekly spotlight you want to share?
I do.
Okay.
I ran 4 miles in 47 minutes this past week. And that was a huge, like, major deal for me.
It is a major deal. Like, when was the last time you ran 4 miles?
I don't know that I've ever collectively in my life run 4 miles. It's very much, like, I need to, like, the pace itself, I'm honestly, like, not mad about the pace. Like, I'll take, I think it was, like, 11 and a half minutes.
Do you know, like, zone training and what that would mean for you?
I have heard of it. I don't know what that means.
I think it's mostly, like, a heart rate thing is what it is.
I don't know. What I struggle with is, like, what I've realized is that I can, like, run for a little bit, and then I'm going to walk. And then I, like, run for a little bit.
It's hard to get, I say this as someone who, like, this has continued to be a barrier for me and any running. Here's the thing. I applaud you because, like, I know running is good for you and good for me. It's good for the collective, okay?
Anyone could run.
I understand it is good for you. I just have no desire at all to run and do running. And so, therefore, like, that's why I have not been joining you on that, because I'm like, I already work so hard. I'm not trying to talk you out of your running journey, by the way, but I'm just like, I work so hard to just get my 4 workouts in a week that like I like for the most part. If I had to switch those out for running, I would be like, no.
I feel like in some ways it's helped me. Like right now, what I've done to switch my workout split, I guess, is that I've got 1 upper day, 1 lower day, and then 2 runs. That's like what I'm trying to do. And I feel like that works for me because I always felt like the 4th day I was like, what do I do on day 4? So like that was an issue because I'd usually do like lists, upper, lower for sure. And then I was like, and then what do I do?
I've usually been trying to do, I'll do lists, upper, and then I like to do 2 leg days a week,
which is fine. But I was always like, well, I did a leg day already. I don't want to do another leg day. Granted, running is kind of just more legs, but it's endurance training as well. So my next, I don't know, like my runs have lately just been like, aiming to go for 45-ish minutes. My goal for my last run was to try and run 4 miles because I'd been kind of like 3.5, 3.75, like teetering around there. And then I had the thought of like, I don't think I've ever run 4 miles. Like I want to see if I could do it.
Like once you kind of get more of like a pace down, or I don't know if you have like a certain pace you want to get to where you're running X amount of time in 45 minutes. But then what sucks about running too is then you just need to run longer.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is.
So I don't know. I'm planning to run on Wednesday. So I'll have already run once this week by the time you guys listen to this. So we'll see what I want to do. I want to try and figure out how to like run a more consistent pace rather than like the start and stop that I'm doing. I have yet to start any like run
to be honest
app.
What I hear from every beginner runner is like you need to like run slower than you think.
That's what I've tried to do, but then like
you still kind of get stuck in like I don't want to be running, so then you walk.
I don't know. Like I feel like to do that. Like and granted, it might be a very slow run, but I'm like, am I even running? Maybe my goal, I need to like find a consistent like route that I want to do, because I planned to do like the way that I walk Vegas. I was gonna try and do like 3 laps, was like roughly 4 miles if I then like it counted like the from our house to like the start of it and then back, and then I was just gonna maybe like do an extra little bit when I came back if I needed to like get to 4 miles. I did 1 lap, and then I was getting hot because like that's like, you know, the weird part about running is like it's cold.
And now you have to figure out how to
dress. I'm like hot.
Do you see the Utah? Are you on Utah running TikTok?
I'm not personally, but
those girlies
I'm on like
are insane.
I'm on the side of TikTok that just talks about them, but I don't see them.
They run most of the time in shorts and like maybe a long sleeve, maybe a light jacket. They have gloves on, sometimes something over their ears or not. And like they've been like literally running in the snow when it's snowing, and they'll be like, it's like 1 degree right now. Like actually insane.
Yeah.
It's not all that cold. They're not always that cold, but I've seen a video where it's like they're like it's 1 degree right now.
That is crazy. So then like after I did my 1 lap, I was like, well, I want to like maybe go and like drop my coat off. Like I was just gonna come outside our house and like put it by the front door and then keep going. But I was also struggling because my AirPods, for whatever reason, have been doing this thing conveniently only when I'm running outside. They'll just disconnect for no reason. They're not dead. And I have to like stop and like take the AirPods out, put them in my case, open the case back up, put them back in my ears.
And I bet your other headphones would be annoying.
I think I'm going to try using them on Wednesday. Because like
I think it's worth a shot, but I just am like wondering how well they'd stay on.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not running like crazy.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be flying all over the place. So that's my plan, to try using my over-ear headphones next time I run. Because I, like, as unmotivated as I am to run, I was trying to find, I think Spotify had like a running playlist that was like curated for me, you know? Good news of AI. And so I was like, perfect. Like that'll motivate me. Had a little like super bass going. I was like, okay, here's a vibe.
Yeah.
And then it just disconnects. And then like after it disconnects, it's like I can reconnect it, but then it disconnects quite literally 10 seconds later. And so that was like mile 1. Like I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And this is where, you know, people have mind over matter.
You dug deep.
Like I had to dig deep to encourage myself to keep going. Here's what I did. And this kind of helped, where it's like, okay, I know I wanted to run 4 miles. That was like my plan. By the time I had already looped back around to like come back to our house, I was like a mile and a half or something. And I was like, here's what I'll do. I'm going to go. I don't even think I ended up dropping off my coat. But that was like my plan. I was like, I'm going to, you know, meander back towards my home. You know, just kind of think a little bit. I'm getting distance in, walking back. And then I was like, okay, I could certainly at least do 2 miles. Like, even if I'm running without my headphones, like, I only have like a half mile to get to 2 miles. And then I went in like a different direction. You know, the other loop that I used to do with Vegas, I was like, I'm going to head that direction. And like, by the time I was doing 2 miles, I was already out away anyway. I had to like turn around and come back. And I think that got me
into doing the
to like, miles. And then I ended up like, I was the doofus that was like having my phone volume just turned up, holding it while I was running. Because I was like, I have to listen to something. Like, I can't just be here with my thoughts. And so then by the time I finished that lap, I was at like 3 miles or something. And I was like, I can do this. Like 1 more lap.
You know what's crazy? Ciera and I used to be people that didn't wear any headphones to the gym. Like until college.
Yeah. But I mean, we didn't like, we would work out together.
Yeah. So but I used to be very much like, I don't need music. I'll be fine without it. And I definitely like having my music or anything to listen to now. So I've changed in that way.
So that was I even took like a little picture of
spotlight.
Me holding up.
The spotlight was you did it.
The spotlight was the mind over matter, like triumph. You know, when I got back, I took a picture of being like, I ran 4 miles. Like that was like my little first time I've run 4 miles in my life. Selfie. And I mean, and then I was like, and then I showered and I got Starbucks. Like that has never been more deserved. Okay. So I, you know, slowly but surely, my goal would be like within the next, like around May time or so, I think I should try to aim to run like a 10K. So that's what I'm thinking. Which is like 6.4 miles.
I think it's right? 6.2.
Oh yeah, because 3.1. Yep. Okay.
My weekly spotlight it's kind of like a combined thing, but same premise. So on Saturday, and I made a TikTok about this if you're so intrigued, I decided to try doing like a little glow up self-care day, mostly because like I've kind of been seeing a couple of TikToks regarding some products I wanted to try. And so this ties into really what my weekly spotlight I think is. I had the most divine morning routine this morning, you guys.
This morning?
Yeah. So I need to talk about it.
I'm intrigued.
So I have been struggling to get myself up to go work out at the gym like no other since it's been winter and it's been cold, and I just have like more often than not I feel like I've been snoozing, sleeping in, and then getting myself to work out after work or what have you. And so I guess I decided to solve this problem by getting up even earlier. So I set my alarm for 5:30 today. Usually I set it for 6, and then like I said, I've been snoozing a lot anyways. And so some of my things that I tried on my kind of glow up day, I decided to carry over to today's morning routine. So what I did, I got up at 5:30. I put on I put my robe on and my cozy pajama pants because I was planning on going to work out. I just was like, I'm doing a little morning routine moment first, and then I'll be going to the gym. And so I made breakfast. I had my little cinnamon bagels with my cinnamon cream cheese. Got my little energy drink. I also slept with my hair in like the little ropey thing. So when I took it out this morning, it always falls out, but it looked good this morning. But like I did it on dry hair.
Okay.
But it looked good, and I feel like I was just curious if it was going to turn out. So then I went upstairs back to my room. I was kind of hanging out in my little reading corner chair. I put Good Mythical Morning on my TV. I was eating my breakfast, just having like a moment, okay? And like honestly, the hardest part, and this is what I need to remind myself, the hardest part of getting up is getting up. Because then at this point, like I'm fine.
What are you gonna do? Crawl back in bed?
So, and then I've been doing a little bit of gua sha. This is kind of just the second day, really. Third day actually. Third day, because I did it Sunday as well. I've been for a whole month trying to do that, and you don't do it anymore. So I did the gua sha. And then I got changed and ready to go to the gym. I'm trying to think. I don't think I forgot anything else. So I got to the gym around like 6:25, which is still like that's kind of when I aim to be at the gym. And then I already decided I wasn't going to wash my hair because I was going to do dry shampoo and, make it work. And so I did 3:30. So I also got some reading in, and I love that. I'm really getting into my book, which I will touch on in a second. And then after that, you guys, I went to the hot tub. And I also did that. So I just was like, look at everything I've done this morning. I feel incredible, amazing. I've worked out. I've done a little TLC. And the workday hasn't even started yet. So we'll see if I keep incorporating that level of energy and effort into the workout mornings. But it was nice.
I do feel like you mentioned like getting up earlier is like it almost doesn't make sense for you wanting to like getting up is the hardest part, but I do feel like having like something that you're looking forward to like right away in the morning.
Yeah, it's not like I'm getting up to like go get myself to the gym.
Want to go to the gym right
I don't want to go outside into the freezing cold. So first it's just like I'm getting up to have breakfast and watch Good Mythical Morning.
Yeah,
and that's maybe the easiest way to explain why it was much easier or more conducive to me getting up.
Because I can relate to that. Granted, on the days that I go work out,
you do just get up and go.
Well, I have to because of how early I want to get into work. Like now, I get up at 5:30 so that I can go to the gym like early to then get.
So now you need to start waking up at 5.
I don't know if I can do that. I don't know.
Anyway, a couple other products that I was going to shout out.
Okay.
Tanlux face tanning drops. I tried that in the video, and I only I've do a little bit. I don't know if you can tell, sitting here, his face is tan.
Oh, okay. This is a little before and after. I wasn't ready.
But I've been liking those. I've used it twice now just to see. I start off small and then I will increase from there. And then I only tried this once, but the lip stain I used in my video, I'm intrigued by it. I thought it was an interesting thing. I will say my lips are dry, and I felt like some of the pigment kind of got into the cracks.
Did you moisturize before you did it?
I exfoliated that morning anyways.
I feel like you should moisturize but not exfoliate.
I exfoliated, then moisturized, then I went to the gym. Then I came back and did all this. I'm sure I've been putting chapstick on like no other. So why my lips are still dry, I have no idea. But
What do you use for chapstick?
I use a mix of EOS and my Laneige thing. I hear mixed things about using Vaseline repetitively, so I have not been doing that.
I use like a Burt's Bees. I think Grandma got it for me, so I don't know if you have one as well.
Probably somewhere.
But I've been liking it. I think it's natural, but it's not like Vaseline where it's like gonna suck everything out and demand that you use more. Because apparently Vaseline's doing that, I guess. I don't know. I will say, since I've stopped slugging, like my eyelids haven't been
No, I know.
as bad, so I think they're onto something.
They're tricking you with all that. So that was my highlight. That was my spotlight. Now we can get in.
I was just gonna touch. I was like, what was I gonna interrupt you for? I was gonna say that I look forward to my breakfast when I make it here. Granted, I look forward to Starbucks too, but like my breakfast sandwich that I make, I'm like, I look forward to that in the morning. So like, it gets me up out of bed, which is what I was touching on when I was saying you need something to look forward to get you up and going.
Okay, book updates. As I mentioned, I'm starting to really get interested in my book, and I'm hoping to finish it within like the next. I was like, if I read 60 pages today, tomorrow, and the day after, I'll be done with it in the next 3 days, and I should definitely be able to at least do that, I think. But I'm currently reading The Prison Healer. I don't remember the author's name. It's the first in a trilogy, and I really feel like we're starting to get to the good stuff. So I am locked in, and I'm ready to keep reading.
I'm glad. I'm currently reading Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and I said that kind of weird. I'm like 50 pages in, I think.
54 per your Goodreads.
Thank you. I did finish my last book. I read All In, which is the third book in the Natural series. Give it 4 stars, which I think is like weirdly enough, like the first book I've given 4 stars this year. I think it was like 3, 3, and 4. So, which is weird because usually I'm a serial 4-star rater. Been on a little bit of a slump this start to the new year. But
what is it like? I read like no other come January, because last year January,
like
I actually swear I read like 8 books last January, but I'm like, there's no way that's right. It's probably 6, but like I'm on track. I bet I could finish. This is gonna be my 5th one once I finish it, and then I was thinking I read Madonna and the Fur Coat because I've been wanting to read it anyways. So
my goal, I mean, I think I'll for sure be able to finish Reckless before the end of January. My goal was to try to
last year I read 8 freaking books in crazy. January. And one was Aquar, but like I finished it like the first day of the year. It was almost done.
I read the
then
first
I had
3
A Court of Silver
books.
Flames, A Court of Frost and Starlight. It's a short one, but then like they weren't like particularly short books, so I don't know. I was just going absolutely crazy with my reading.
Anyway,
technically I need to average 5 books to hit my 60 book goal. So
yeah, I'm trying to I think I need to obviously alternate between 4 and 5 as my average. So I was going to try and start with 5, especially since February is a shorter month. So
that is true.
I should for sure hit 4. We'll see if I get to 5. My goal was to read Reckless and then Lost and Lassoed maybe as book number 5. We will see if I can pull it off.
Okay. So, how has reading changed our lives? Where do we want to start with this?
I feel like first let's start when we were younger.
Yeah, I was like, let's go back. What were some of our
actually pretty avid readers, elementary and middle school, I would say. And I think this is common for a lot of people. I think, everyone in middle school, I feel like it's common to have you have your free reading book. And so for whatever amount of time in class you have a spare moment, and they're like, okay, pull out your free reading book and read. And so we always just had a book that you were reading, and I would say you and I both enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I would sometimes come home and I'd take my book with me and
for
I would
the most
read
part
on my own.
Granted, a lot of these are memories, in the distant past, and I don't remember every single time I came home with a book and just devoured my book. But I do remember one book, and that was The Hunger Games. To no surprise, this was a classic. It will be a classic. Everyone loves this book, usually who reads it, and it's very much our generation. But that's the one book, the first one specifically. I remember going home to my dad's house and just being like, I have to keep reading this book, and that was what I did the entire rest of the evening. And I don't remember, or at least I don't have a memory that sticks in my head of any other book that I have done that with when I was younger. I have classics of like, at least in my mind, I'm like, this is a book that I read as part of my childhood.
Well, yeah, I remember the Penderwicks was a huge one for us. Like for whatever reason,
the Willoughbys was kind of similar vibes of like
Sharon Creech, more specifically you, but like we both read her.
I read Walk Two Moons, Chasing Redbird. She's a few different ones where like, I don't know, for some reason I was hooked on her books, and I really couldn't even tell you what they're about now.
I'm pulling up Sharon Creech to see. Ruby Holler. Did you read that one?
I think I read that one.
Bloomability. Did you read
possibly. Maybe.
Those are the ones, at least to me, that Absolutely Normal Chaos. That
one rings a bell.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it's like, as a young reader, you kind of like find one book and author you like, and then latch onto it with all you got and keep going. Funny enough, I was actually just looking at my Goodreads, and I was wondering, at least in like my most recent reading journey, and since I've had Goodreads, I was like, what author have I read the most books from? Now, first place goes to Colleen Hoover, okay? Because I've read 14 of her books, and I know there's Colleen Hoover haters out here. I'm not here to, build her up, nor am I here to break her down, okay? So I have no qualms with admitting and saying I enjoyed most of her 14 books, and if she were to have more releases, I could very well pick another one up. Coming in second place, though, it's a pretty significant drop-off. I was surprised at, like, how big of a drop-off it was, because I was like, holy cow, I've read 14 of her books. But second place, actually, which was kind of surprising to me, Sarah Adams. Mostly because I've read a lot of her books on Kindle, and she just has, like, some really quick, easy reads. And I feel like especially her new releases, I feel like they're actually starting to get, like, onto
better.
Like a higher level, rather than just like, oh, like this is a quick like Kindle Unlimited read. Now I'm like, this is good stuff. So like her most recent one, which I just read as well, which was Beg, Borrow, or Steal. Like I thoroughly enjoyed that. I don't put that even in like a good for her type of book. I was like, no, this is just a good romance book.
Good.
I enjoyed it.
She's developing her craft.
Yeah. So, she was my second place author with 7 reads, and then I have quite a few authors I've read like 6 of their books. So
okay,
Elsie Silver is one of my top authors, and you haven't read a single book from her. That's crazy.
It's coming up, I think. We'll see. Anyway, back to childhood us and our reading journey. Obviously then, we get to high school, and I feel like this is naturally where, if you were a reader, this like you would drop off here. You're in a lot more classes. You have a lot more schoolwork.
You are forced to read books, like assigned readings for different English classes. So like if you're reading, it's probably that, and you're probably not getting the most enjoyment out of it ever.
And then you've got like sports usually start to ramp up at this time, or like other activities that you might be doing. And so just like for us, I can think like I went to school. I didn't have a lot of time, during the school day to read. Like if I had a study hall, I would be doing homework. If we didn't have free time in class anymore.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, we had the things on our plates, and then in the free time it was like we had YouTube stuff. Like in terms of hobbies, just reading was not.
We did gymnastics.
On
we got to
the
go to
list.
practice. We got to coach. Like time to go home and go to bed. Like that was the routine. And then like the weekends come, and like we'd be doing other stuff. So then like basically I would say outside of like reading for school, I don't know that I read a single book for fun in high school. Would you agree? Like I wish I could think of one that I maybe did, but I don't think that happened. Now obviously college starts. I wasn't going to start reading because like why would I start a new hobby and this like very sudden, drastic, kind of scary change in life that I'm like, I just want to do well in college. I'm not going to pick up a new hobby. So all of college, undergrad, didn't do any reading for fun. Read for the school work that I had to do. And that was it. I did end up reading Handmaid's Tale. Not too bad. I know a lot of people
we
love
had
Handmaid's
a couple
Tale.
assigned readings we still had to do.
Like I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I was just kind of indifferent about it. I think it's a good not thought experiment, but
dystopian.
Yeah, like you gotta
book.
Makes you think about what's going on in the world. But like as far as reading for fun, I didn't do any of that in undergrad as well. PT school starts, but then also like before PT school,
I feel like really it was like
COVID.
COVID, and then all of a sudden,
the
like book
influencers.
talk and
Yes.
influencers be influencing you to do things you weren't doing before.
Like, I think specifically of influencers that I followed, Brooke Miccio was one who, like, I knew was reading pretty often. And then, like, you start to see, like, the same books being recommended over and over. And I'm like, dang, people are, like, really liking
be
these
reading
books. Like, that was just, like, the first internet exposure I feel like I got to, like, people are reading now.
Yeah.
And then COVID happens. I didn't even start reading, like, during 2020. It was, like, I was getting all of this, like, influence coming in 2020. And then, like, at, it's the end of the year, I'm, like, trying to think of goals. And I'm like, maybe I should try to pick up a book. I don't know. So in 2021 was when I had set my goal to read 3 books that whole year.
I think what's so fun, too, is, like, prior to... And you had, like, read... Your first book that you decided to read after you set this goal was Agatha Christie.
Yeah, Murder on the Orient Express.
And, like... I don't know when exactly I decided, I'm also going to try and, like, read a book. It might have just been, like, when we went on vacation. I was like, I'm going to bring a book to read and see what happens. But you, like, with the book that you chose, because you didn't really know what you wanted to read, you weren't, like, it wasn't like you were falling in love with reading again. So I can't say I was particularly, like, I'm going to start reading as well. And so... That wasn't really
I know, like, the exact
draw.
moment I would say I, like, fell in love with it. And this one we're probably going to get hate because it's related to Colleen Hoover.
I know.
But we'll get there when we get there. So, like, I felt like since I watched a lot of, like, I was interested in, like, true crime. And I liked mystery kind of thriller stuff. Like, when I was watching TV, I was like, maybe that would logically make sense where I start. And we had just watched with Dad, like, over winter break, like the Angels and Demons stuff, and I was maybe gonna read a Dan Brown book, but then I was like, it's kind of thick for like my first book. Maybe I start with the classic. So like my first 3 books I think that I had picked out, or at least first 2, were both Agatha Christie, and like it took me a little bit to get through them. I didn't read them very quickly. Like
it was kind of like you were reading to read them, is what it was.
So this was like January through March, like me trying to get through like the 3 books I said I was gonna read, and honestly I was pleased. I was like, I'm totally gonna kill those 3 books for the year goal. And
little did she know.
Then we're going on a spring break trip with her mom, going to Florida for a whole week, really with no plans but to like go and be by the beach. And so Megan knows that I'm dabbling in reading.
What do people do by the beach?
And we've always liked going to Barnes & Noble. Like, even if you don't read, I feel like Barnes & Noble's a fun time. But now, like, we've got an excuse. Like, let's go find some books and, like, buy them to read. So Megan, and I feel like I'm so shocked that we picked up Colleen Hoover. Like, maybe it's just the way that Barnes & Noble was set up.
Because here's the thing. In my mind... Like, I wasn't on Book Talk enough to, like, I didn't know what Colleen Hoover books, I didn't know the titles. I didn't know she was a sought after author. And she wasn't, like, this was not a table, like, situated and set up in the front of the store, okay? Like, we were just in the romance section.
Browsing the shelves.
Okay? And her covers are not very, like, they're honestly not great covers. Like, I really, in terms of, like, romance covers, they're not great. But I happened to pick up... November 9th, and Ciera got Confess. I don't know if you also got the Inheritance Games, and I got the Silent Patient as well.
And you and I both picked our non-Colleen Hoover books for vacation.
Right.
And, like, thoroughly did enjoy them.
Right.
Like, I would say Silent Patient, like, you obviously gave 5 stars.
It was great.
Inheritance Games, I liked. I thought it was fun. Like, I gave it 4 stars. I felt like it was something more interesting than what Agatha Christie had been giving me. Like, it was, like, the fun twist.
Did we do, was it vacation books and then Colleen Hoover? Or
yes.
did we? Okay.
We got back.
Okay.
School is starting again.
Mm-hmm. I remember, because I thoroughly enjoyed The Silent Patient, but it's also, like, I was on a beach. I had nothing but time to dedicate to reading this book while I was
like,
relaxing.
what am I going to do when I get back home?
And when I got home, obviously, like, we have, like, PT school and just, like, we're back to the book work and stuff. But I felt compelled, since we had gotten these books, to, like, try and incorporate this into, like, my, not daily routine, but I wasn't sure. I was like, I just want to, like, try and give it a go. And when I tell you, I would describe it as, like,
was, like, life-changing.
Entering into, like, the Garden of Eden. Like, I'm not kidding, you guys.
And I know it's so funny to say about, like, a Colleen Hoover book.
But, like, it was like my brain rewired. Like, the chemistry in my brain changed in terms of, like, I could enjoy reading a book
as much as I can enjoy, like, watching TV or watching a movie. Like, it can be that same level of entertainment.
Like, where I want to do nothing but sit and read this book right now and do nothing else. And I
tell you what, We finished respectively each of our Colleen Hoover books.
And then
we swapped.
went into each other's rooms, switched them out, and said, "Great, I'm gonna go read your book now." Like it was like drugs. Okay, we were so hooked, and I feel like you hear the same thing with like any person who starts as like Colleen Hoover being the gateway, because you have someone who really hasn't been doing any reading all of a sudden pick a genre and a book that like, and I know we have plenty of people who like, even if you're a new reader, you might try one of her books and decide like that's not for you, you don't like it. But I think the vast majority and why her books do so well is she takes someone who is not reading really for fun and like unlocks this world of just reading
like, you don't
for
have to think
pure
about
entertainment.
Like, yes, you don't have to think about like motifs, symbols. Like she's not giving you none of that. You know,
it's pure entertainment, good storyline. You're just engaged the entire time. And so that was just like a huge turning point. And I give credit where credit is due, because I would not be, as we said, we feel like reading has given us just, we've met new people because of it. We just have a lot more enjoyment and fulfillment out of life now that we have reading. Whether or not we're reading her book specifically anymore, she gets a lot of credit
where it's due. So that's kind of like, I won't, bore you guys with like the talking through like every single book and author we have since, gotten into since then. But it's been roughly, we're going into year 4. My biggest
thing, if you're someone who you have the appeal or you want to try and get into reading,
this is year 5 of reading.
Wow. I really am of the mindset that like reading is meant to be enjoyed. Okay. It should be an escape. You shouldn't feel like you're boring yourself or torturing yourself to read something just because you're trying to like be smart or learn something or be someone who reads, or like be able to tell someone like, oh, I'm reading this book, so it's really smart of me and like I'm getting a lot out of it. Like if you are someone that enjoys those books, that's one thing. But I really feel like it takes time to hone in on what you think you might like, and it's worth it to try and explore. I think like find like the top lists of like, okay, these are the top books that a lot of people are reading in like these different genres. That might give you a good starting point, but you might have to also like jump around to different genres. And then obviously like as you progress, like your tastes might change, because like I wouldn't say my taste has changed drastically, but I used to be so scared of like entering into the fantasy world, and I really didn't think it was going to be for me. And I was like, I just remember like when I was really invested on BookTube and watching all of like Haley Pham, Sarah Crowley, they're probably the main two that I watched, but they initially weren't super big fantasy readers either. And then once they started like going to the fantasy books, I was like, I'm losing them and I'm not going to follow them. So now I'm not going to be able to enjoy their stuff. And then I slowly went down the same path as well, because I was like, oh, I actually do like this. So I think, find different genres or try them out and see what sticks. And you need to find that 5-star book to just open up the gates of what is out there.
So obviously what was fun then was that like now reading wasn't just like a me thing. Like Megan was enjoying it too, and not that we're not besties anyways and didn't connect over other stuff, but like we were like, let's go to Barnes & Noble, and like that would be like another fun outing for us. And then like I don't know when Haley and Maggie like individually started reading, if it was before, after, or around the same time as us, but like we would then say like, you should try reading this book if you're like trying to get more into reading. And like they obviously started reading more, and like it just allowed us to connect with friends and family. And then like now through book club has allowed us to like meet new people with this like
same centered interest, but also like now we start like we're separate, and then books bring us together, and then it's just like the branching point to then continue off just having better relationships with more people that we didn't know before. Like we're literally doing a girls trip over the summer with people that we met or have gotten closer with in book club that we would not have had otherwise.
I also just think like aside from reading, like reading is by far my most consistent, and like I would just say my most consistent hobby has been reading. But like I picture like, how people are like, what are your hobbies? And like I used to hate that question, because I'd be
it's
like, I don't
almost
have
been
hobbies.
the gateway to having other hobbies.
I agree. But like I used to hate that question when it's like, you're trying to help people like get to know you, and people are like, well, what do you like to do? And I'm like, I don't really do anything but watch TV and like
Go on my
go
phone.
on YouTube, go on social media.
It's also hard too, is like when we were younger, like obviously we still do YouTube and podcast stuff now, but like now that I have other hobbies, this is just a harder hobby to explain, like YouTube, making a podcast, doing video stuff. And so I usually just like, I don't bring that up usually. So now I like having something a little bit more classic and
I like to
less
read.
confusing. I like to read. I can say I like to
I mean, I talk about
crochet
reading
now.
with patients often, but like when I was like on clinicals and stuff too, when I had like younger patient caseload, like sometimes we talk about reading, and like that would be a fun way to like connect with patients, because sometimes you're like, you gotta make small talk, you know, however you can. I think someone literally had like a Colleen Hoover book, like one like in her bag or something. I was like, I've read that one. But yeah, obviously my patient caseload now, they're not usually doing reading, but
I sometimes have some readers.
yeah,
It just
it's
depends.
usually not the same taste. Actually, weirdly enough, I have a book from one of my patients that I'm not even seeing right now, and I need to like try and read it so I can get it back to her. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, other ways that I feel like reading has helped shape me, maybe shaped you as a person, or shaped your thoughts. This is more so like nonfiction, which I must admit, like I don't read nonfiction as much as I do fiction, but like it does like make you think about things in a different way. I think specifically of like Trevor Noah's autobiography, highly recommend if you haven't read it, but just like reading about other people's life experiences and like getting to see parts of the world through a different lens has been like enlightening.
I feel like veering back to like the fictional books I am reading and have read, I have transformed into like a hopeless romantic, whether that's good or bad or who knows. Because I feel like it makes your expectations so high, but it's also like, well, why shouldn't my expectations be plenty high? Just like I'm thinking back to like our episode we did of like what it means to be a man written by a woman, and it's just like, had I never gotten into reading and like romance specifically, I would have no idea what I'm even talking about. And now I just feel like I'm so in tune with what that means and what that looks like, and that's what I hope for.
You think that like reading has helped with like your productivity at all, or like trying to incorporate like I do this amount of reading a day, or like helped keep you on track with things?
I feel like it really ebbs and flows. There's days where I do really well with reading. There's times where I'm in a reading slump and, you know, kind of revert back to not reading as much. And not that like reading does not define my day as being a good or bad day based on like how much I did or did not read. But the way I kind of look at it is especially if I'm doing, let's say, a day where I'm just kind of hanging out at home after work and I'm not particularly doing anything, I tend to notice that like the days or evenings where I incorporated more reading or dedicated more time to that means that I was on my phone or the internet less, and or not watching like a show or something. Not that those things are bad, but I just have been trying to be more mindful of like not just endlessly allowing myself screen time.
Sometimes it's nice that like, you know, obviously watching TV, being on your phone, we said, isn't bad, but sometimes it's like your default. Versus reading, you have to say like, I would like to read right now,
and I'm going to choose
you know what
to
I mean?
do this.
Versus like sometimes I got 3 screens in front of me and I'm like, how did I end up like this?
Yeah. Where you feel like you're doing everything but nothing.
Yes. Versus I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and read. This is something that it's an activity that I want to engage in. I feel like that's at least more intentional, and it feels better.
I was going to say like the scrolling and being on my phone, like a lot of that is just like mindless. And that's not all bad. I'm not trying to say that like going on your phone and screen time is inherently bad. But reading and or any other hobby that's more mindful, I feel like you feel better about doing that at the end of your evening compared to the more mindless tasks.
And I do feel like in some ways, like I would say, you know, more often than not, and people can probably relate to this, like you don't have like a ton of plans necessarily after work or like on a given day. And like reading can become your plan. And then I'm like, oh, like it's a reading night. Like, you know, you turn it into its own moment versus saying like, well, I don't have anything to do again. So I feel like it's just, and like, this is the other thing that's like reading has changed my life. I'm like, all of you like worlds that I've been in, like that like mental escape, like the mental landscape that it's provided me, like I don't know what it does to my brain chemistry, but
I like it.
but I quite enjoy it. Like I talked to Megan, this is like right when I was in the throes of reading ACOTAR, and I was joking, being like, and maybe I've mentioned this on the podcast too, where I was like, I'm going to work, but like my life is not at work right now. Like my life is in Valeris, like in the world of ACOTAR, and like everything else
Is secondary.
Like this is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be at home reading my book.
I'm just waiting to get back to my book.
I'm just waiting to get back home so I can go back to my book.
So I can go back to Valeris.
Yes. So like I've always thought that was like a fun thing about reading that you don't get from
with fantasy
TV
specifically.
shows or movies.
It's just fun to feel that engulfed in the world that you're in. Yeah,
that you don't quite get with contemporary romance or like.
I know. I was like, you don't quite get that same level of intensity in like your contemporary romances, but you can still appreciate. They're more character driven than anything. You want to get back to the characters maybe more than the place.
That's true. Project Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, like, your books that you've read, which books have changed your life?
I would say ACOTAR as a series, Project Hail Mary, The Silent Patient. None of you guys are surprised right now. And then Beach Read and Happy Place.
I would say
I've got a lot of series I would love. Like, I love the whole Chestnut Springs series. I don't know what's determining, like, I feel like the earlier books in my reading journey too, like, kind of automatically get like the higher ranking, because the more of a newbie you are to reading, I feel like the more intense you feel the feelings of like the really high highs at first, versus now, unfortunately, I feel like instead of being like just super like, oh, this was a really good book or really not my cup of tea, I tend to be more so like, I did really enjoy this book, but I'm not like losing my mind over it, which is kind of upsetting. I wish I could. I
mean, I do think the more that you read,
feelings as strongly.
Yeah. Which is like, sometimes I recommend a book, and I'm like, you're going to love this. But like, if they've had other books that they've read before, like maybe it won't hit quite the same as when I read it. You know, everyone has different books that they've read or not read that have like primed them for what they're now reading. You know, and that would determine how much they like it or dislike it.
Right.
I can think books that changed my life. Silent Patient, obviously. I mean, I gotta go confess.
11/22/63
like did completely change my life. Beach Read.
I am in the mood to reread Happy Place sometime in the near future, I think.
I'm like going through stuff. Do you remember To Love Jason Thorne?
Mm-hmm.
That was an oldie. I never read the rest of that series. You know, book I hated, 99% Mine. It's like the worst book ever. But I also hated Sharp Objects. But we won't need to delve into that. Are there any, like, I know neither of us have read like a ton of nonfiction, but like, how would you say, because there's, you know, if we're pandering to an audience who maybe does or does not read, like, certainly I would say people who do read nonfiction would like tout its benefits of, like, you know, depending on what they're reading, like productivity and like building habits and stuff.
I think if it speaks to you, like, that's the whole point of reading, is you read something that speaks to you and you feel like you get something out of it. So I think it more so stems from like your own personal mindset type of thing. And my own personal mindset towards a lot of like nonfiction or self-help geared books is that like nothing that they're saying is groundbreaking, at least to me as a reader. And so I don't get enjoyment out of reading those types of books, no matter how profound what they're saying is, because to me, it's not new, most of it anyways. But if you're reading it and to you, like, this is profound, this is new, this is enlightening, and the first time hearing of it, then you're probably going to get more out of it and you're probably going to enjoy it more. So I think it more so, it's not just like a nonfiction or self-help thing versus something else. And I think with the right nonfiction book, like, I could get interested, I'm sure. But I kind of like having it's nice to know like what I'm reading is just fictional and that it doesn't really matter, or like it's not like gonna be heavy topics that like are gonna just put me in a spiral and be super, super concerning. Because I'm sure like you could read something nonfiction that's like entertaining, but maybe it's also kind of like sad or emotionally heavy. Not that fictional books can't also be the same, but at the end of the day, for a fictional book, you can be like, this isn't real.
I would say like if you are, looking to get into nonfiction, as someone who prefers fiction, like I have found autobiographies to be like a good gateway because they're typically still narrative based, and so there's still a story there. You still have like typically some sort of chronological order to things. Like I've read since I started my reading journey, I think I've read 2 autobiographies, one being Trevor Noah's and then one being Michael J. Fox's, both of which I quite enjoyed. So like if there is someone that you would be interested in actually like learning about their life, then like, I think it's a good option. I think it also just gives you a little bit more like empathy reading about the lives of other people like through their own lens. And then I'm slowly but surely trying to like branch out into other types of nonfiction. I'm still looking for like more of a narrative. Like I found The Gift of Fear. You're still reading that technically.
I know.
But
I was going to say what's hard for me is when I have incorporated nonfiction, I've kind of been like, I'll read this in conjunction or at the same time as a fictional book. And I personally just keep progressing through the fiction books and then choosing another fiction book. And then the nonfiction book just sits there sad and untouched. And yeah.
But what I liked about The Gift of Fear is that like there were those like bits of narrative and storytelling within it to like still keep me engaged. I'm currently reading as like my nonfiction side piece that I'm like really not that far into. But The Men Who Hate Women, I feel like there's like going to be some like good like narrative storytelling, like anecdotes in that. And I feel like right now for nonfiction, I need like anecdotes of some form to keep me engaged. So that is my nonfiction reading journey. I'm trying to read 5 this year. Expand my horizons a little bit.
I will see if I can finish The Gift of Fear. And I also would like to read that one as well.
I also have Chantel Miller, Know My Name, I think, as one of them.
I don't really like see a whole lot of like, I'm not on nonfiction book talk.
Or sorry, Chanel Miller. I said her name wrong. Which is ironic because
Know My Name.
The title. I'm sorry.
Ciera failed already.
Yeah. That is kind of funny. Anything else to add?
I am just very grateful for who I've become in the past 5 years now. Part of it's maybe also just like maturing and growing up anyways, but in my mind, this has coincided with my reading journey as well. So it gets credit.
Also, like the
shaping.
joy that like having books like actually
Just
brings me, like, physically
also,
having books.
Oh my God. Like rearranging and just like looking at my bookshelf.
That is
incredible.
like going book shopping. Like those are 2 completely separate hobbies that like bring me so much joy.
But it would not be possible without the love of books.
So there you have it. If you are also a reader, feel free to talk about your little reading journey or how reading has benefited you in some way. Maybe we kickstarted some of your reading journeys. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool.
Let us know if you have any books that you're dying for us to get our hands on and share our thoughts with in our little reading updates. You can DM us or comment down below.
And I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We certainly love talking about books, so this is always
no skin off our back.
It's always a joy for us. With that being said, we will talk to you guys next Thursday.
Bye.